Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Ali, CEO and co-founder of Knowde, the leading digital customer experience platform for chemicals and ingredients. As you know, our goal with this series is to share the perspectives you need to navigate the changing digital landscape of our industry. We have yet another amazing guest today. Can't wait to get started on this conversation. Joining us from Sao Paulo, I'm thrilled to welcome John Lin. He was previously the Chief Commercial Officer at Citrosuco and now leading Evera Ingredients as Chief Business Officer. For those that may not know, Citrosuco is one of the largest vertically integrated orange juice producers in the world, responsible for more than 20% of the world's supply, which is quite crazy to think about. Here's an important piece. For many years, Citrosuco has invested in R&D to find more value from the fruit and develop new natural products and clean label ingredients, which has led to the launch of Evera. It's a separate business unit from Citrosuco that is now a new way of creating healthier and sustainable foods and fragrances, which is a big topic in our industry, as everyone knows. They are growing remarkably fast, and I absolutely love what they're doing. John, I'm thrilled to have you here. Maybe before we jump into the conversation, is there anything else about yourself and your background that you want to share?
Hi, Ali. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here in your program. I think for me, this has been a tremendous experience. I experienced more than 30 years in the FMCG industry. So for me, was quite a change to move into the food industry, but it's been really remarkable to be able to have this challenge where we had to provide healthy and more nutritious food to a growing population. And especially here at Citrosuco and now Evera, with the mission of upcycling the leftovers of the orange fruit production.
You've had a pretty storied career. I mean, I couldn't even we don't have the time right now to go through it. I think it started at P&G, and then you had a bunch of senior positions at Avon before you actually got to Citrosuco. So you're a long-time player in our space.
Yes, it has been, let's say, spent a lot of years with P&G, with Avon, and also with consulting with Accenture. So I'm really glad to have worked in those companies, learn a lot, made a lot of friends there.
Well, how did you originally get into the industry? I mean, what sort of excited you? Because I think you started at Accenture, if memory serves, and then you got to P&G. I mean, why did you make that shift?
So I'm a very curious person, and for me, I think one of my purpose in life is to learn more. And I was with back then Anderson Consulting, and I really wanted to understand what was happening on the other side of the table, right? Being consultant, you're not seeing, you're just providing some service, and you don't know what happens after you deliver the final binder. So that's what made me move to Procter & Gamble. And from then on, it's like I was always looking for new challenges and moving from one function to another. So I started in supply chain, then moving to logistics, moving to sales, then into marketing with Procter & Gamble.
I can't even imagine trying to draw the tree of folks that have left P&G to become chiefs at so many different organizations. I mean, it feels like so many of the industry's leaders kind of got their roots at P&G.
Yeah, well, it's a great school. I think even today, I think despite all the frenzy in the digital area, P&G is a great business school for most executives.
Indeed. Okay, let's jump into some of the key topics. And I think this is particularly important for your case, just because what's happening with Evera is something that's unlike I've seen in so many companies. And if you're willing to share any of that, I'm sure our audience would love to hear it. But let's talk about it within the context of digital for a second. As I'm sure there's been a much higher investment in digital capabilities over the past 3 or 4 years than there probably has been in the last 30 years combined. Especially around customer-facing initiatives, where suppliers want to be able to give their customers, new, unique, novel sort of experiences. When you think about what you're trying to set up at Evera, how does digital fit in?
So we've been only in the market for a year and 2 months. So we're still in the early stages. But what we're doing is the first thing is to get the digital platform right. So the right data infrastructure. So that's, I think, the first priority for us right now. So we're making sure that our product database, all the interactions with clients, that we are able to record everything for future use, okay? Then in terms of digitalization, we have a lot of projects. We are trying to digitalize our interactions internally because we are spread across 3 continents today, South America, North America, Europe, and next year we're going to, or later this year, we are also going to Asia. So I have teams for a new company spread around the globe, and we are trying to digitalize the interaction. So not just the meetings itself, but also the contents. So how can we standardize the information? How can we use dashboards that are common to everyone, and how those dashboards get updated automatically? And how can we have also data analysts looking at that and seeing and getting new information and insights from that? And we are in the early stage with clients, but in this market where you develop food ingredient, you have to have interaction between your application team or your development team and the client, and you have to test product. The traditional way is to bring them into a room and spend a few days working on that. So we are trying to experiment to say, okay, how can we do, for example, send samples in advance, test the samples with some digital tools, and then have the final interaction through video conferencing to adjust the specs and things like that. So, but this is the early stage. We are starting to look into what type of tools that are available from startups that can help us develop further. So if within the audience there is anybody that has a startup that has any tools, we are interested in hearing.
That's amazing.
Just one final comment. There is another area that we also investing, and that's why we are great fans. I personally, I'm a great fan of Knowde, is really in the OTC process, the order to cash process. We think there is a huge opportunity for us to improve the interaction with the middle market and the fragmented market. Today, it's very easy for companies like us to provide to big companies, but I think there is a huge market that is underserved and that we use Knowde to reach them, which is the middle market and the smaller guys.
You know, I hear a lot about suppliers wanting to use digital to sort of extend their reach and maybe start the engagement with customers, but I don't hear it as much in the way you just described it, which is to kind of support the R&D process, you know, from sample to product development. How have your customers sort of taken to that approach?
So right now, I think there's skeptic about that because that's quite new. But I think the difference between Evera and the other ingredients company is because we are new in the market. We have very big aspirations and really want to use technology to disrupt what we're doing. So reaching them and having a more close interaction, a more frequent interaction, that's very important. That's why we really look at that. Large companies, they have their legacy system. It's more difficult for them to move into that space. For us, we are willing to try and experiment.
Are you getting kind of a pull from your customers into this space as well? Like, do you hear them wanting these sort of experiences?
So I think we get different feedbacks. I think, for example, I can give you one real example. That's why we decided to move into Asia. We were in a fair last year, and then a lot of clients from Asia reach out asking us to meet with them. Okay, so that was a pool that we didn't expect, and that came from just one very little piece of media that Citrosuco published announcing Evera in Asia. And because of that, a lot of people came and pulled and want to say, okay, why don't you come? We want to see more, we want to understand more. So I think for, let's say, underserved markets, I think that could be something very big where there is pull. And I think we have to create that habit for people to really asking for more.
Are the customers in Asia wanting to sort of touch and feel you in person, or are they receptive to sort of this type of interaction?
I think they like both. I think in the beginning, to build trust, some real life presence is very important, that also to demonstrate interest. But after the first or second interaction, all interactions have been virtual.
That's great. Just one more question on this topic, just because I love it. Have you had a customer go from a lead to customer only through digital?
Not yet, not 100%. I think some of the steps during the process will always involve some, let's say, interaction that is physical or analog. Let's put it this way.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no, I would, especially since it's a new type of product.
Yeah, I think the difference with let's say all the digital, 100% digital world is the product. This is a product that people have to touch, they have to experiment because it's a food ingredient. So you want to experiment or taste the texture, the mouthfeel, the odor, so the flavor. These are very important attributes for a customer to make a decision to buy or to go ahead to develop a product or not.
Yeah. As much as you're willing to share, I would imagine our audience would love to hear a little bit more about this growth story. I mean, you shared some of it with me before we went live, and my eyes almost popped out of my head when I better understood how quickly things are growing over there. I've never heard of a growth story like this before. It's remarkable.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been working for quite a long time before we launch Evera. We experiment a lot of things. So when I joined Citrosuco as the Chief Commercial Officer, the mandate was to how do you extract more value from the other half of the orange? And because I had a commercial team and the product development team, we tried to do everything with the same team. We soon realized that that was impossible. At the end of the day, although the client is the same, we had to tackle different areas, right? So we spent a lot of time understanding exactly what would make Evera successful. Of course, we didn't have certainty. So when we launched, we have 3 different platforms, but we also have a culture to be nimble and fast and very pragmatic. The moment we saw that our plans in one of the platforms, the priority platform was not working, we pivot very fast to the other, okay? And that's what helping us grow this first year and also providing all support for future growth.
Yeah, I get it. This is one of my favorite questions, and I know this is something that a lot of leaders across the industry are kind of struggling with right now, which is that the market is considerably different today than it was 2-3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Depending kind of on which segment you're in, it's a little bit worse than others. But in these environments, sometimes it can be more challenging to get bigger budgets. Sometimes things get cut back. Sometimes folks become much more sort of short-term centric, looking at the next quarter instead of 2 to 3 years down the road, like I think they should be. What advice would you give, your peers as they're attempting to balance these, short-term challenges with long-term investments?
So are you familiar with Simon Sinek's talk of the finite game, the infinite game? Oh, so yeah. I think at the end of the day, that's what we try to apply at Evera. So there is a finite game, which is the plan, even if it's a short term or medium term, we have to deliver that regardless, because that's the commitment we have with the shareholders, okay, or to the investors. At the same time, I think we have the responsibilities as management to look at the long term. So in this world that we are moving in, which is very unstable, and I think where the model is changing from a globalized one to very niche and segmented, I think people have to really understand the value that the customer and the consumer ultimately wants, okay? We shouldn't stop investing in technology, but we should change the way we look at technology application. The technology has to bring solution that fits the consumer pocket. I think we are in an area where there will be limited credit, so we have to make the most from the credit. So I think it's much more of a mindset shift and say, how do we adapt? Okay, yeah. There will be less cash, there will be less investment, but at the end of the day, technology still will be the engine for change and for growth.
Yes, it will.
That's why we're here, right?
Yeah, this industry is not excluded from the rest of the world. Any sort of final thoughts that you'd like to share with your team? I mean, our base of listeners is growing pretty rapidly, but you'd be surprised as to how many employees of our guest reach out to me after to sort of thank me for hosting and hearing their leader, speak. And they love this last segment because you're kind of speaking to them. So, what do you want to share with your employees, especially maybe those that are kind of working on some of the digital initiatives?
Okay. Well, I think the first message that not just myself, but all the shareholders, they are very happy with what all the Evera team has accomplished. And I think we expect a lot more. At the same time, I say don't rest on what you have achieved. For me, 1 year of good result can be just luck. The second year is circumstantial. I think third year is where you're starting to show a trend. So we are just moving to second year. We have to have at least 2 more years of successful growth. But I'm very confident that with everybody's engagement and how people enjoy working for the company and are contributors for the company, this energy will continue.
I'm hopeful that at some point in the future you write a playbook on how to do this sort of corporate business development. What you guys have accomplished in a year is truly unlike things that we've seen in this industry before. John, I appreciate the time. Folks love listening to these informal conversations with people like you that are helping shape the industry. Thank you for everything you're doing to move the industry forward. And I can't wait to get back together and hopefully less than a year from now and talk about what digital experiments you've done and how quickly you're still growing.
No, thank you, Ali, and thank you for the invitation. It was great to be able to be here and also share a little bit of our experience.
Right. Amazing. Thank you, John.
Right. Thank you.